I'm great. Hi, Hunter. It's great being here today. I
Oh,
always enjoy coming back to Power to Fly. Thank you so much for inviting me and having me here today.
always, 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 always. And I always love talking to you, Limor. Catch me up. What has been happening?
Well, first of all, Sienna is wonderful. I just wanted to kind
Oh,
of rally to her.
yeah,
And what's been happening? I've been so busy.
yeah,
And we're talking about career crossroads. Actually, I made a huge change in my career and in my life 4 years
yeah.
ago.
Hmm.
So I ditched the corporate world. I was a director of engineering and I became an independent consultant, a coach, and I do also workshops. So it is possible. It is possible. And I was born in a very middle class kind of family. So I just want to
Hmm.
share with everyone like everything that you want, you can have it.
Yeah. So talk to me. That's so inspiring. Talk to me a little bit about that corporate journey and making the decision to leave and start your own practice. And now it's happening and thriving 4 years later. So walk me through a little bit, maybe for folks that are thinking about taking the leap, or maybe they were recently let go. There's a lot of that happening across industries. So talk to me about that journey for you and maybe some advice just right out of the gate.
Absolutely, would love to. So first of all, it wasn't just it. It seems like it happened overnight, but actually, it was a multi-year process.
Hmm.
So as I grew my career, several things happened to me. First, I started volunteering as a mentor to engineering
Mm,
leaders, and I always encourage women that I coach volunteer. So I guess my first tip to everyone here, find volunteering opportunities, even if you're not unemployed. It fulfills you, but
hmm.
also it boosts your motivation and your self-image and your confidence, and you meet people and you learn a lot of new things.
Hmm.
And you give
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. I think, it's being of service to other people, right? And that's the greatest gift we can give someone else. And also, it's the greatest gift we can give ourselves.
Yeah. So I started mentoring voluntarily. And I found that I really enjoyed it. I got tremendous feedback from managers I was mentoring. And I
Mm,
saw the amount of impact I was able to make, even if it was a one-off 30-minute conversation. That, along with my passion to really see more women in tech, to try to advance more women, I was doing that as part of my role as a director. But then I said, hey, I can actually make much more impact on many more women. So why not just do that? Because
mm,
I noticed that I was putting a lot more energy in both in the ERG, the company ERG, and also with mentoring. And that was a growing passion. I realized that it's something I must be doing. It wasn't exactly clear to me how, but I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I took a bold leap of faith. But
mm,
it's important for me to kind of emphasize here that what I did is not necessarily right for everyone. It happened to me that we moved back to my home country, to Israel, after spending 9 years in the US. It was the right timing for me to make a change. And I also needed some time to spend with my kids with acclimating back. So that was the right decision for me. Financially, I could afford it. It
mm,
doesn't mean that that's the right decision for everyone. But the thing is, I knew what I wanted. I knew that it will happen.
mm,
And I believed in myself. It doesn't mean, though, that I don't have self doubts. That's another thing
mm,
that I want to emphasize here. No matter, people that you see out there that seem confident, that seem like they know it all, that they're successful, they have self doubts as well. And I
mm,
see that with a lot of very successful women I coach, also women that I interview. I have a podcast, From a Woman to a Leader. So check it
mm.
out. Also, women that I interview for my podcast. We all have self doubt. So it's
Mhm.
okay. Doesn't mean that everyone is perfect and you're not. It's okay to
Right.
have self doubt.
Yeah, it's a human experience, and it's about how we cope, how we handle, how we navigate that self-doubt and imposter syndrome, I think, are quite linked. So when you're working with these clients with coaching and when you're talking to folks on your podcast, there's a lot of these internal barriers that we're all struggling with. What are some of the tools that you coach and suggest to cultivate positive strengths for a positive based mindset?
Absolutely. And obviously it varies, but there are
Of course.
several things that I see recurring. First of all,
Mhm.
a lot of the women that I coach put themselves last.
Mm,
And I used to be exactly the same. I have 4 children, I am married, I was working full time, I always put myself last. And how is that related to imposter syndrome? The thing is, when we don't take care of ourselves, it hurts us in
yeah,
every possible way.
yeah.
It also hurt our confidence. So one of the things I always ask, I don't tell people what to do, but I suggest to figure out how they can find time for their own self-care, because they need that time. And for every woman, it can be different. For me personally, what I started doing is to taking care of my body. So I started working out. I found out that I enjoy running. I'm not a
Mm,
marathonist. I'm not like a big runner, but I do run for my own well-being. I found that fulfilling. I found that energizing, and it boosts my confidence.
yeah,
I shattered some barriers about myself when I started running in my 40s because I thought I couldn't run. So,
right.
there is a linkage.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. It's because we have these old stories, right, in our head. Maybe, oh, I've never been able to run. I was never the fastest, or now I'm only speaking for myself. Oh, I'm too old to do that, or my body can't handle that. Oh, my knee hurts, But for me, I was like, oh, I found cycling, right? Because it's like, oh, my toe. Like I have an injury that I've like learned as an adult. It's been there my whole life. It's a unique injury. And so that impact literally has a mental tax, right? And then when I got on that bike, I was like, oh, there's no impact on my foot. This is great. I enjoy this. I feel better.
Wonderful. So that's one thing. First of all,
Yeah.
prioritize self care and do something for you. I highly recommend moving your body.
Hmm.
Any kind of activity you enjoy, just go and do it. It helps
Yeah.
with your, just the feeling, just for
Yeah.
your own well being. The next thing I would say, look at which people you spend time with. Sometimes we cannot control it all, right?
Right.
We have
Coworkers, certain family
coworkers,
members.
family members, but we do have control of other people. So, one of the things I constantly try to surround myself with people that lift my confidence, that fill my cup. Just yesterday, I was in a networking event with incredible women here locally. So always, always look up for people who boost your confidence, who lift you up, lift your spirit, someone you can talk to.
Yeah.
So it can be, outside of work, it can be in work. And try to minimize as much as possible interaction with the energy vampires and the people that
Mm,
kind of hurt your confidence. It's not always possible. We know that, right? Sometimes there
sure.
are coworkers you have to deal with no matter what. The next thing I would say, especially women, I see that I'm hugely generalizing, but we have this tendency to be our worst critic and
Mm,
always look at what we did wrong or what we can do better, never really appreciating what we do. So I ask those women a lot of times to get a second opinion. So try to talk with people around you
yeah.
and ask them what they see. It can be your manager, it can be your peers, it can be stakeholders. Try to get an external perspective, because a lot of times you think you're so bad, and actually
Hmm.
people see things in you that you don't appreciate.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's very important. Not very
Hmm.
easy to do, though.
It's a brave move, right? Because we're opening up ourselves to be very vulnerable in that moment because we're
Yeah.
sharing something very vulnerable. and we get to choose how much we share, right? We don't have to tell them our negative story. We could just ask them maybe a more open-ended question, but we don't know what they're going to say. So that's
Yeah,
a very vulnerable moment.
absolutely. And you can say, you can start with, even friends, and ask a positive question about good qualities. You don't have to go
Mm,
directly to the, areas that you can improve. Just ask a positive question like, what good qualities do you think I have?
yeah,
And get that external perspective. But at work, if you think that you have done something not so well and you kind of hit yourself all the time, ask people, how was I? What have you
right.
seen? Because a lot of times it's not as bad as you think.
Oh, right. We're always our worst critic. There's a phrase
Definitely.
I love is put down the bat and pick up the feather. Just be a little
Yes,
nicer to ourselves. I'll just tap
definitely.
myself with a feather instead of that bat.
Definitely, definitely. And I'm like everyone else. I'm not saying that I'm perfect. Definitely. I have this as well. The next one I would say, which is also difficult, every day do something uncomfortable. Every single day.
Mm,
Try to practice, and it can be something very, very small, and it doesn't have to be related to work. Because the thing is, when you practice getting out of your comfort zone, not only you grow, but it fills your kind of confidence that you can actually achieve something you haven't thought you could. And I'll give you just an example. Let's say that you want to buy a new car. True case, we want to buy a new car. And you go to a car dealership. Practice negotiation with the dealer.
mhm.
Now, it may not be related to your work. You may not be in sales at all. But even something that, may be even low risk to you, what do you care? You just negotiate with a stranger,
Yeah.
can really give you some confidence. Hey, I can do that.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
practice getting uncomfortable. I'll tell you something. People think I'm like, oh, I'm so confident. I'm actually an introvert person. It's really difficult for me in like social gathering and networking events. So just yesterday, when I went to this meetup, it's not comfortable place for me to go and meet strangers and
Right.
start having conversations. But
Right.
I do that. I do
Yeah.
that because I know how important it is to practice it.
Right. Because you're saying do something uncomfortable and that's not easy for you to do. And yet earlier you were telling us how it filled your cup up, right? So
Yes,
that by going out of Limor's comfort zone, you end up actually filling yourself with positive people, new experiences, new information, and new information about ourselves, right? You're like, oh, like you said, I can do that. I can do that.
absolutely. And I do that now. I have the privilege because I'm a business owner. I say yes to every opportunity that obviously that is relatable to me. I say
Hmm.
yes, even if I don't have a clue how we're going to do it. I always say yes and then figure that out.
I
Even,
love it.
even a lot of times it scares me.
Sure. Yeah.
And maybe sometimes I will not be perfect, but this is how you grow. There's no other way.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, so much of what we're talking about right now is connected to biology of being a human, right? Exercising, we need to burn off that energy, right? We need to burn off that the endorphins and it brings our cortisol down. It helps calm the nervous system when you're running, when you're biking. And then we're creatures. We want to stay in our nice, safe shelter that we found. I don't want to go out. Why would I go out to the scary woods when I could stay here? There's people I don't know over there, right? And then going outside and look in the scary woods, there's a whole feast and water sources and all these things, right? But we don't want to do it. And I am the same way. I was like, I don't want to do that. And then I'm so excited when I'm there finally or afterwards. It's an achievement, right? It's a huge
Definitely.
achievement to go outside of even those little things. Those small wins are huge.
Definitely. And you talked about wins. I want to talk about failures. Failures are part of growth and also
Hmm.
challenges. And
Yeah.
women I coach sometimes give me like a tough situation they have at work. Let's say there is a change, they have a new manager, maybe their coworkers they don't get along with, whatever it may be. And usually what I do, I try to show them how is that a good thing. Sounds kind of
Mm,
crazy, right? Show
mhm.
them where is the opportunity here? Where is the opportunity to actually evolve, to try to work with someone that you maybe it's not easy for you to work with, to try to negotiate, to try to resolve a conflict. Those are all good things, and you learn from that and you grow from there, and there is always an opportunity. And you have to be willing to fail. And
Mhm.
it's so hard because I know that because, the school system teaches us that failure is a bad thing, right? I have
Right.
kids at the school age, and all the what the teachers care about is the grades. And this is
Right.
so sad because this is getting in our brain that failure is a bad thing. And also there are companies that don't encourage that. But failure is inevitable, first of all, and also it's really important for building ourselves and
Right.
growing.
Yeah.
So you have to fail. And if it's very, very difficult to you, try to fail at small things. Try to fail, as I said, like negotiating on a new car, or even like going and, I don't know, going to a store, try to buy a shirt and try to. I just took the negotiation thing, but it can be anything else. Try to fail at
Yeah.
something you don't care about.
Right.
But you have to practice failing because it will happen to you whether you like it or not.
Right.
It's part of your evolution.
Absolutely. I like to say I'm a recovering people pleaser and a recovering perfectionist, right? Two things. I want everyone to like me and everyone to be happy, and I want everything to be perfect. And guess what? None of that will never happen, ever, ever, ever. And I know
Well,
that about myself now, right? I know these things about myself, and I'm like, am I trying to make this perfect? Have I been obsessing on this thing on my computer for an hour now when it really only needs 15 minutes of my time and I should move on and maybe come back to it or delegate or accept that it will never be perfect and just send the darn thing? These are the things that I can now catch myself doing. I don't know if
yeah,
anyone identifies with this, but perfectionism is just the death of progress, right? Because I will never get it done. We'll never finish it.
absolutely. And I'm not a perfectionist, but a lot of people I know are.
Yeah.
And part of it is because they are afraid to do something that will not be good enough.
Right. Yeah. And I think it comes from this, like you said, this school behavior, right? Like if you don't get the A, if you don't get perfect scores, you look dumb, they'll make fun of me, I'm bad, I'm wrong. All these things start to unravel, right? And they're going in the background. And now it's like we learn from making mistakes, and that's how we can grow our courage and our knowledge.
Yeah, and I would
And
say
it's not
there's
easy,
nothing is perfect in life, and we
right?
don't need to, at least I don't strive for perfection.
Right.
I strive for progress, progressing
Mhm.
myself every day, one step at a time.
That's right. Yep.
And you mentioned the people pleasing. This is a big one
Hmm.
for me and for people I coach.
Yeah. I know a lot
You're
of women
n-
struggle with this. And, as a queer person, that's like been a part of my journey of just like making sure everything is fine. So it's not about me, like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah,
you cannot please everyone. You probably know that, Hunter, but I'm telling like the audience.
yeah.
I try to please, especially when I started managing, I try to please my team members. And it caused a lot of bad things because it was impossible. And then it
Right.
led me to make bad decisions. You cannot please everyone. And that's a fact. Trust your instincts and make the right calls.
Yeah. 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 So, Limor, we only have about 8 minutes left.
Yeah.
This is So I always adore speaking to you. I would
Oh.
love to hear about this. So now that you're working with your clients and your coaching, can you walk me through a bit like what does a session look like with Limor? Are we having one right now? Is it like this? Because I'm learning a lot. I'm taking this with me.
I think so. Usually, I try to understand what my client is bringing with her
Mhm.
and where she's at. Basically, trying to see where she's at, where is she struggling with, and with that, we're trying to kind of uncover what is holding her back.
Mm.
And a lot of times, by challenging the thoughts that she has about what she can or cannot do, is it so? How do you know it's true? She realized actually she has been limiting herself for no reason. So, so usually we talk about starting point, challenging, and then, okay, once we try to break some of those barriers, it doesn't always happen right in one session. It can be multiple sessions. Then we try to build a plan for, okay, now that you started breaking some of those barriers, how do you want to set your goals and make a plan for that?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. So let's talk a bit about work-life balance. That can be really challenging for a lot of people, especially maybe if you're starting your own business or if you're stepping into a leadership role. There's suddenly we have more responsibilities, right? And there's maybe more people counting on us than there were before. So how do you suggest women prioritize self-care and create boundaries that support their overall well-being while also preserving their career goals and their career responsibilities?
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be one or the other.
Both can be true.
Yes, I think that what you mentioned, setting boundaries, is very, very critical. And I'll share just a quick kind of anecdote about a woman I've been coaching, and she has been a manager and she's been burned out. And I try to
Mm,
understand from her, like, what's going on. And eventually, long story short, we realized that she has been taking on herself all the new, management responsibilities, but still she has been very much involved in her previous duties, like leading the technical team and be involved in pretty much everything. And it was very hard for her to let go of certain things that she used to do, delegate, and also set boundaries about what she can or cannot do. So every time her manager was trying to put more workloads on her, she said, okay, whether it was her manager or it can be other teams, it was very difficult for her to say no. So we had to kind of work on two main things. One is delegation, like trying to really nurture the next generation of leaders and delegate some things, being able to let go and trust people in your team. And the
mm,
second thing is setting boundaries. And how do you do that with your manager and with also with peers? How do you say no?
right.
This is really hard for her and many women. And usually the approach I like to take is actually a positive approach. So saying yes and, meaning let's see what we need to
Did you
prioritize
go
in
to
order to
acting school? Yes, and is the first rule of improv.
no, I haven't. Maybe I have another career future.
Okay, yeah, come on.
So trying to kind of look at it positively,
Yeah,
because a lot of times we struggle saying no. So
right.
what if we said, well, I'll be happy to support you, but we have to prioritize. Let's look at all the priorities and see what we can do. One of the women I interviewed in my podcast said something really funny. She said her manager was used to put a lot of work on her plate. And she said, I can do everything you ask me if you can add 24 more hours to my day. And I love that. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So 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 you don't always have to be kind of like that, but trying to kind of challenge what is the top priority. Let's see what we can do. How
Mm-hmm.
important is it? Is it more important than the things I'm doing right now?
Right. How do you judge that? How do you decide that? How do you, like you personally, Limor, make that decision?
I am looking at timelines, at impact, right? I mean, if I don't do it, what's going to happen?
Mm,
Or what's going to be the impact if I do
yeah,
one thing versus the other thing?
right. Yeah. So we only have 2 minutes left anymore. is there anything that we didn't touch on that you would just be couldn't go to sleep tonight if we didn't talk about it and share with the audience?
No, I don't think there's anything like that. I just want
You're
to.
like, nothing's that
I
important.
will
We're
sleep
fine.
okay. I will sleep well tonight.
That's called a healthy work-life balance, Limor. See,
Yeah,
you're a living example of it.
but I could probably talk with you for hours on that topic. So
Clearly. And I would love it. You know, I'd love every second of it. So tell me about your podcast and
yeah,
where can do I get it on all the places I get my podcast, and remind me what it's
yes.
called and
So
what
my
are the best
podcast
ways
is
to stay in
called
touch with
From a
you?
Woman, to a Leader.
Yes.
And you can find it also on my website. So if you type limorbergman.com/podcast, you will find it, but also on Spotify, Apple Podcast, all the podcasting platforms. And you can find me on LinkedIn, and that's where I'm mostly active. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I'm now in the midst of season 2. When I started it's called The Color of Change. So I took on myself a challenge to interview only women of color in tech and leaders in tech. And
Yeah.
even more so, I wanted to interview Black women.
Mm.
And when I set my mind to that, at first I didn't know how many episodes I'm going to have. And I'm going to have soon 30 episodes recorded. So,
Come on, Limor.
so I'm so
Congratulations.
excited. I'm so excited. Yeah.
Truly, truly amazing. And producing a podcast is no easy feat, my friends. It's a full-time job. And guess what? That is not Limor's full-time job. So I am so darn. Am I allowed to be proud of you? I'm so
Oh,
proud of you. I just adore you so much. You know, we've known each other a few years now. I've watched you fearlessly and boldly make big choices, and you're thriving, and it makes me so darn happy.
thank you so much, Hunter. Really, I mean, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today, and I miss you.
I hope to see you. Okay, go
Yeah.
before I start crying. I can feel it coming. All right, bye, Limor.
Bye. Thank you.